all about keeping social media kind of fun and interesting and creative and something that I find a little bit of pleasure in doing. And so I am just a systems girl, number one. Like I love a structure, I love a plan. I don't work really strongly organically. Once in a while, I'll get a little bee in my bonnet and think, oh, I really want to do a post on this, and we'll kind of just on the fly create something, but having some structure just has always helped my brain. So, and then, I was worked in child education, like elementary education, and so and working with little kids, alliteration and like having fun themes and things like that. So my brain just kind of works that way. So coming up with like meditation Monday and what's up Wednesday just really, kind of hones my ideas. And in previous years, I've done things like, the year of self-care. If you pop over to my YouTube channel and go under the playlist, you'll find I have the year of the inner child, the year of self-care. And so, yeah, it just helps me to save some brain space so I know what I'm doing when. And it really helps out. Yeah. How do you find like posting on social media? Do you have any systems that you really like using at this point?
I do. So what I've done is it's kind of tough. So I try to post like similar to you, like let's say a motivational meditation. I try to keep it under 30 seconds because we're losing our attention span these
Yeah.
days. But what
Yeah.
I do is I do it I have an app, so I do it in a way because I found out that if you keep the watermark from different apps, it impacts your engagement on other platforms. So what I've done is I've recorded from my phone, edited on my phone, and then I'll post it everywhere. So it actually has worked out. And I found that actually the engagement is pretty cool because all you have to do is basically talk about one thing for like 45 to 60 seconds. And people are like, well, yeah, that's kind of interesting. And then they're on to
Right.
the next, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. I mean, there are days where I like abhor social media. There are other days where I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of fun. This is kind of, silly and, take some enjoyment and pleasure in it." And I've gone through phases where I like have taken a big break from posting and just posting like once a week, to now where I kind of am posting, about 5 days a week and that. But, it's a sweet way to, of course, to get out there and get to connect. What a world we're in, right? Though, where we can just connect with people all over the country, all over the world, and hear different ideas and different perspectives. And gosh, especially with everything that's going on in these United States, I don't know how united we are right now, but you know, and I'm sure you're watching from Canada. I'm like, holy shit, like it's crazy, right? Oh man. So I'm finding some salvation in, following certain people on social media for sure.
I saw someone, she's in Canada. I think I know one of her friends, right? But we're connected
Mm,
on social media. I don't know her outside of social media, but I think we have an actual mutual friend. And with everything that's going on in the States and with everything that's going on just around the world, her social media, she wrote this post and something said, Train, just read this. Like usually you don't read like a very long post, especially if it's like emotionally filled, driven or fueled. So I've read it and I was like, wow, she's going through a difficult time just
mm,
because she's being bombarded with everything that's going on between, let's say, the America and Canada, let's say, everything that's going on in the States with the rest of the world.
yeah.
And she actually had to remove some people from social media because they were always talking in a negative light. And she found that it was actually impacting her mental health.
Yeah.
And I didn't, I took a step back, Rachel, and I was like, yeah, I can actually see that happening where you're getting so caught up in what other people are posting that now it's
Hmm.
impacting you versus you getting impacted by what you post. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's so easy to doom scroll these days. And, I think for me, again, I'm a systems girl. So, I think right after the election, well, right after the inauguration, really, and somewhat after the election, I was on a lot more and kind of seeking out the voices that I wanted to listen to and the perspectives that I thought had a good blend of really honestly humor and perspective, because there are out there who are definitely, rage baiting and just kind of tossing up the latest headline without kind of analysis or what really happens next. And so, just over the past few weeks, really being intentional about, who are the three or four people that I just want to check in with, on those for those topics for that resource, and just go to them, once in the morning, once in the evening, and that be that. And then there's a newsletter that I follow called What the Fuck Just Happened. It's by Matt. I love it. He kind of does a summary, like in one sentence, of like the things. It's a very long sentence, but of the things. And so that gives me kind of a little pulse check. But yeah, finding balance because it 100% impacts our energy, our anxiety levels, our sense of what's going on in the world, which is why I really like, some of the creators that I found who give the perspective of like, yes, this thing is being talked about, but here's what's actually what would have to happen for that to happen, and so on and so forth. And, we're all having to, I think, find the things that support us the most, whether it be completely checking out from it or finding the few key resources that we like. Yeah. How are you finding it? What kind of things are you noticing for yourself?
I found that it was actually impacting my sleep because
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I've noticed, let's say I want to say November and December of last year, I found myself actually for the first time in a long time having my phone in the bed with me.
Mhm.
And that's something I had to break the habit, right? And I would position my pillows was so bad, Rachel. So
Right.
my scrolling arm was like propped up. So I
Oh
could
my gosh.
scroll and,
Oh,
I don't feel like I'm lifting
yeah.
weights on with my shoulders being working out. And I even went on Temu, and I don't know if you saw this. I don't know if you do online shopping, but on Temu, there's actually uh, a so a phone stand holder that
Sure.
connects to your headrest, and it goes all the way around in front of you,
Yeah.
so you don't actually have to hold the
Yeah.
phone anymore.
I've
So you can
seen those.
literally
I've
be
seen
bed,
those. It's like
right?
an elephant nose. They're like, yeah, it's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, what the hell are you doing, Trent? Are you actually thinking about looking at
mm,
this? Whereas let's say like a year ago,
mm,
I wasn't that way. Like in 2017, when I was on Instagram, when I had actually personal social media accounts, one day I went into the watch hours on the app, and I found that I was spending about 5 hours a day just on Instagram. That's a part-time
mm-hmm,
job, right?
mm,
So I did the work
yeah.
and I was able to separate myself. But now, like last year, I found myself and I can't even remember what I was looking at, but I know that it was to the point where 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
Hmm.
There's times where I'd fall asleep and my pillow is like my wife. It's on my cell phone's on the other pillow. And I'm
Yeah.
like, am I dating my phone now? I'm like, am I married to my phone?
My
It's
gosh,
wild.
I can relate, and so many people can relate. I think there's something about it, of course, that drags us in, and time does kind of pass in a weird way. It's like you're in a time warp a little bit. And similarly, like I've put on my phone things like an app timer so that that app is blocked after I've used it a certain number of hours, and during certain hours of the day I can't open certain apps. And of course I can bypass it, and sometimes I do, but for the most part it does give me a good, reins that in a little bit. And we go through cycles, right? I think part of what I'm noticing is like that wanting to go and look, like I'm waiting for the good news. I'm not actually looking for the bad stuff. I'm looking for the like, has it fallen apart yet? Is he gone yet? Like, is he so like, I think that's what's kind of propelling some of my engagement is just this hope that the next time I open this thing up, it's going to be like, guess what happened? Everything's fine. Everything's fixed, which is ridiculous. But, I think we're all in such a state of kind of what in the heck, because we're living through something that's new, not new in many ways. It's new for our generations. It's a little different flavor, even though many of the themes are, we've seen historically again and again that this is what society does. So yeah, trying to find your peace. How are you finding your peace, Terrain? What are you doing to kind of bolster yourself in the midst of it all?
That's a good question. I think what I've been trying to do is I've started reading a lot more,
Yeah.
right? So I've tried to ease myself off it. So what I've done is I've said, okay, if I'm gonna have my phone in the bed with me, like I'm dating it, I might as well, learn something from it, right? So I was like, okay, let me, because I have about 10 pillows on my bed,
Yeah.
right? So when I
Amazing.
sleep, I'm sitting up, basically, right? It's
Got
like
it.
zombie mode. So I was like, okay, let me read something. So I've been reading a lot of like psychology today.
Hmm.
I've been reading a lot of like law crime library, and I've been figuring out that all these young teachers are sleeping with all these students and abusing them in so many different ways. It's like, oh my God. And then you have the toxic men and women in the comments, right? Oh, I wish that was me at that age. No, you don't. No,
Oh
you
my
don't.
gosh.
But
Ridiculous.
it is ridiculous. But what I found is reading, and I started playing video games again, but not in the way that people think. So most of the video games I have are like dance and cardio based. So I started doing like dance
Okay.
cardio again.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Fun.
Right. So because I work from home now, I used to do it on like medium hard setting, like maybe let's say a year and a half ago. Rachel, these days I'm on easy mode and I'm like,
Honey, I
I'm
feel
like,
you.
I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I need to get back into shape, right? Like this sedentary life is killing me, Rachel. It's killing me.
Yeah. It catches up with you fast. I feel that too. Yeah, there are a couple of YouTube folks that I like to follow who do these like 15-minute dance. And sometimes I'm like, honey, I cannot pop it like that anymore. It doesn't. If I do that, the back is going, but it's still good to like get up and move and do it at your own level. And we have to because gosh, it just catches up with you so fast when you're not moving. And so I love that. I love that you're reading, and me too. Like I read pretty much every night before I go to bed. Right now, I'm reading The Bridge to San Luis Rey, by Wilder, Thomas Wilder. And I like a lot of fiction. I can't get into the nonfiction, like especially right before bed. I want like fantasy and take me to like different worlds kind of things. Um, yeah, just trying to connect with friends too. That's been so important lately to just be with the community and kind of consoling each other and keeping each other grounded has been, really helpful as well.
Do you have the same group of friends? Like, have you been able to maintain that over the years?
Yeah, I do. I have a pretty solid group that have been my circle for a while. At least 10 years. That person, and I think 15 years with the other. Yeah, I think the youngest relationship that I have that's here in San Francisco is about 4 years. Yeah. My circle's definitely gotten smaller. I think pre-COVID, I definitely did more kind of like gatherings and kind of monthly things with a broader group of people. But now I'm just focusing, really intentionally on the relationships that I feel like kind of feed my spirit the most. And I have two long distance friends, so kind of keeping up with them, plus about my like 3 to 5 people here in San Francisco. It's a good crew, yeah. And a lot of the people in my community, of course, are worried and, are either people of color or queer. So we're definitely navigating, so much of what is coming at them, with this administration. So just try to, like, hold it down and find the moments of joy. I'm reading a lot about joy as an act of resistance and trying to really tune into that too.
Yeah, I was asking because I found that I've my peer group has shrunk but
Mhm.
changed over the
Mm,
last 2 years. And one of the things that I've also noticed is that I've been more receptive to start friendships from people that I've met through the online channel, right?
okay.
So
Yeah.
one of the first, so maybe let's say the last, especially this year, what I've noticed is that when I make connections, I'm one of the people who say, okay, let's exchange either emails or phone numbers. And then even though it's more of a business relationship,
Hmm.
um, we start to get to know each other a little bit more. So, for example, there's a few people who are from the States that I met through the podcast, through the coaching. When they came to Canada, they came here, right? So we all met up, and it was like the first time we've seen each other in person versus through the
Oh,
computer,
nice.
like you and I, right?
Yeah.
So I found that has been beneficial just because to your point, right? Like it's you have a common theme within the group. I think I spent a lot of my time around people that were um not progressing in the way that I was. So instead of
Yeah.
it creating, let's say, compassion or contentment within the group, it created competition,
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
some people, one person said he actually ended up in therapy because he felt that he couldn't compete with
Oh,
the
damn.
circle group, right? Yeah, and then when I spoke to him, I was like, I didn't realize that you're going through something like that, and then I found out that I was one of the reasons why. So I
Oh,
was like,
dang.
oh, okay.
That's right. Oh,
No,
gosh.
I was like,
Moment of
wow.
reflection.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay. So, should I be homeless? And then
Gosh.
you'll
Yeah.
get better. So it was just that's why I was asking
Yeah.
that question just to see where you were because I know that you mentioned before COVID, you
Right.
had a larger group, and then I suspected that
Mm,
afterwards you had a smaller group. So that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. It's so tricky. Like, it's so important to find people who see your aspiration as inspiration, and I'm really so lucky to have people around me who do that and really lift me up. And we're cheering each other on. We want to see each other succeed. I just watched the latest season of Harlem. Are you into that show at all? Do you track it at all? It's basically a story of four women. And what I really love about that story is just the way they are so for each other all the time. And you have a win, we're cheering for that. You're having a tough day, we're here for that, right? But nobody's dragging anybody down in that. And I think that's really powerful. Um and it's unfortunate sometimes where people get kind of caught up in their own insecurities and fears about themselves that they aren't able to take that. So, but finding the people really who get to champion you and cheer you on. I'm glad that your communities are evolving in that way.
Yeah, yeah, and I've actually seen a couple of shows and seen a couple of interviews of that where you have people they're so celebratory of each other. You're like, wow,
Hmm.
like because you see the other side maybe more often than you'd want to, but when you see people celebrating each other, it's like this is
Yeah.
so amazing. Just if everyone was like that, right? Like it would inspire so many people. Like how many people out there have a dream and the dream means so much to them. It's like their baby, it's like their child, right? And
Right.
then they go to someone and they share that dream, but they went to the wrong person. The person kind of like shatters the dream for them, right? So to hear about
Oh,
this show is so inspirational, but on the other side, it's I can see where maybe some people will get lost in the mix, unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, there's enough of life that drags us down. Let it not be our friends. That that should red flag, red flag, red flag. If my friends, oh no, you are not a friend, you are a foe. And so let me reassess, let me realign. Hmm. Yeah, speaking of dreams, what are you dreaming up this year? What are you working on?
Well, I do have a little bit of good news, but it'll be official April. I'm telling them to change it from April 1st to April 2nd, just because April 1st is like April Fool's Day. So I'm like, hopefully they're not gonna prank me by getting my hopes up, and then they're like, "Aha, we got you." So I've done a couple of presentations and a couple of meetings for those who are suffering from grief in their different forms of relationships. So one of the not one, but the CEO of it, the person who is running the charity, she's in the States. She asked me to join the board to help them with their presentations on an organization of their events.
Yeah, yeah,
So I'm very
that's
happy
wonderful.
for that because for someone to reach out because I think I've done two, maybe three, and it was very well received. Like it was virtual. So she's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, do you mind joining us and helping us create this?" So I had to take a step back and say, "Okay, do I have the time?" Right? Because someone asking you to be a part of something,
Yeah,
it's important to them because it's their baby, right? So I want to make
right.
sure that I don't disappoint. So I was like, "Okay, give me a week. Let me see if I can move some things around, medium
Hmm.
term and long term." I was able to, but now I'm working like almost every day.
Yeah,
But it's
pressure's
important. It's
on.
a charity that helps men and women. So
Yeah.
It's all about that. So that's what I've been up to.
Yes. Wonderful. Cheers and celebrations, man. I'm really excited about that for you. It sounds
Thank
like
you.
what are some of the things that you're going to get to step into, like as far as who you are or how you get to show up in the world? How is this going to help you expand?
Well, from a networking perspective, it's going to be really good. I'm getting exposure there, as well as lets me use some skills that I've been working on, such as the public speaking,
Yeah.
the presentation. So it's going to do that, as well as because I'm in the mentor side and I work primarily with women. This opens me up to the male side,
Great.
which
Yeah.
has been harder than I expected to crack, especially in Canada. So I'm hoping to get into that and maybe understand it because the way men need assistance is different than the way that women need assistance, but we all need some form of assistance.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? Do you have any insight yet into like where the lack of interest or connection is happening with men? Like why it's harder to tap into that market, into that community?
I think in general, men are a little bit it takes them more time to open up
Mm,
because social conditioning, you have to be strong, you have to be brave, right? You can't show weakness. So one of the presentations that I did speak on that because there are men present, and a lot of
mm,
them agreed, and a lot of them spoke up about it. Some cried, so that was good to see,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's vulnerable, right? And I also shared with them that I saw an interview. I think it was an event. I forget where it was in the States where they get men who had grief. They use grief as an example. Like every I think week it's a different thing, but this time it was
Mm,
grief. And they said that they got a number of men together, and then every man would they would just form a circle. One would get up, go in the center of the circle, and they would just say that I want to cry because of this reason.
mm.
So
Gosh,
once they
wow.
share that, the men will stand up, go to them, and hug them. And if they cry, they're crying on the shoulders of all the men involved. So it's pretty good because all the men got to do that event, and it's something that I saw for the very first time. And based on some of the comments I read, a lot
Hmm.
of men didn't know things like that were out there, but it allowed them to feel like they could share because some of them felt that they couldn't.
Mm. That's so badass. I'm so excited to hear about that. And I know there are, creators out there and organizations out there that are really working to create these kinds of safe spaces for men. I think of it sometimes like society is just trying to find the calibration. Like women have wanted to be leaders and to be strong and, to bring their skills and their gifts and their intelligence. And there was a time in society where there just wasn't space for it and we made space for it, right? We created it. We said we're going to do that. And similar, I think men have always wanted to be able to express their tenderness and their vulnerability, but the space wasn't there. And so we're starting to see that, that happening and for it to be normalized and, not looked down upon. So kudos to you and the organization, all that work that y'all are doing. Yeah, helping those guys out. That's
Thank
really
you.
great.
Thank you. So what about yourself? What is on your agenda for 2025? Because we're almost in the third month of it.
I know, we're kicking right along. Well, next month I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. for fun, just like family vacay. We're going to try to see the cherry blossoms if they're there, and do a little sightseeing. So just enjoying that. I have a couple of little trips planned this year. On the work side of things, I am gearing up for a retreat in the fall, in North Carolina. So my colleague, Janae, who's a sex and intimacy coach, and I are going to do like a 4-day retreat for women on like awakening your sensuality. And so it's going to be all about like embodiment and, being friends with your yoni and finding your powered pussy. Can I say that word on this podcast? Sorry if not. It's said already. And and I'm really looking forward to that. So doing that kind of in-person retreat and hoping to get the momentum to be able to do that, year to year. So a lot of my energy is going towards that. And then I'm also doing a really nice collaboration with an organization called Sapria. They do free retreats, and they have lots of great resources. And so we're going to do some collaboration of doing some like virtual trainings. The first one we're going to be doing is really about child abuse prevention. So that's going to be coming up in May. So I'm trying to get my ducks in a row for that. Um, and yeah, I think those are kind of the main intentions this year is just really focusing on my collaborations with the nonprofits and getting that retreat, kicking. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's amazing news, especially the one for the children. I think that is so well
Hmm.
needed.
Yeah. Yeah, a few years ago, I kind of got a little bit into that work, doing some prevention and awareness work. And then the person I was collaborating with just had some life changes. And so we had to kind of put that on pause. And so I've been kind of waiting and seeking for the next opportunity. And then, Sapria came along. And so, yeah, that will lead into I have a 3-part training called the Empowered Parent that people will then be able to opt into to dive deeper into the awareness and the prevention and the response. Yeah, because we need to continue those conversations. There are tons of great organizations out there doing really great work who have been doing it for decades. So I'm just, throwing my little hat in the ring and kind of joining the pool, if you will, of voices who are raising that issue and raising that topic up. Because the more, empowered we have parents, then the more empowered we have the kids and the safer they're going to be and the real chance that we have to start reducing, these numbers.
Do you see something maybe acting as an obstacle for the impact to be there for the children and for the parents, not only in what you do, but in what other people do throughout the world?
Well, I mean, the obstacles remain that I think have been there for a while, though we're seeing some movement in it. One is just, are people willing to talk about it? Yeah, the idea of like, oh my gosh, if I bring this topic up with my children, aren't I introducing them to the idea and isn't it going to scare them or, those kinds of things. So really kind of countering those kind of myths about the conversation being the problem. Like, whatever got better because of silence? Like, what? Like, how do we ever, evolve as a society by not talking? Like, this is not helpful. And so, yeah, I think we have to it because truly the parents have to have the awareness and they have to have the skill set and they have to have the boldness and the courage to speak up, to speak out, and to call out things when they see it. And even just to ask the questions. Like if your child is at an after school program, are you asking the questions like, what's your one-to-one policy? What are your youth protection, policies? Where is it written out? Show me. How do you actually vet people who are in this school aside from background checks? Because those don't really do the whole job. So being well informed and then being empowered to actually step into those conversations and I think parents have a lot on their plates, so much. And certainly when you're starting to work with like organizations or school systems, there's a lot of fear about being that parent, right? Like you don't like getting labeled or getting ostracized. So yeah, we just have to work to overwhelm, those fears and anxieties to just quash them and say, what's the cost at the end of the day? Even if you do get labeled as that parent, so what? If your kid is safer and other kids around, in that community are safer because of your efforts, that's well worth it.
It's like the fear that if I speak about it, I'm putting it out there. And if I put it out there, someone's going to either know that I'm thinking about it, talking about it,
Yeah.
or that maybe it has happened. And I think sometimes so many people, they rather hide behind the science and say, okay, you know what? Um, the elephant in the room, let me try to squeeze it into the closet
Yeah.
and don't
Yeah.
and don't even take a look at it, right? And I think that is usually more harmful than it is good.
For sure, for sure. And so one of the things that I like to emphasize and when I'm doing these kinds of trainings is just we have to normalize the conversation. Just like you ask your kids, like, have you brushed your teeth tonight, right? Like, did anything happen today that we need to talk about? And just having the conversations about sex and body positivity and body safety and consent. The more normalized you make it and the more at ease you are about talking about these things, then the more at ease your kids are going to be, to talk about it and to also speak up and to defend themselves if something happens. Yeah.
Yeah, because like you and I, from what I remember, we're not that far off in age. You know,
No, we're close. Yeah.
we're close, yeah. And for us, like for us to learn about sex and things like that, we didn't have the social media. It was either the like the naughty book or that back corner in the library or
Yeah.
the video store with the room with the cloak and the
Yeah.
curtain,
Oh
right?
my God.
Oh my God, we're so old.
VHS baby. Porn on VHS.
I know VHS. Oh my God, we used to hit the TV to make the picture come in, even though it
Like,
never worked because you didn't pay for it. Oh my God,
yeah, that's right. That's
right?
right.
But social media like opens up the door to very sexual things, right? Like we talked
For
about doom
sure.
scrolling, right? You could be scrolling and you can see things. I've seen things that I'm like, how is this still up there, right? So for like the
Yeah.
children out there, I think it's always better if the parents step in and say that, okay, you know what? We're not only a boundary and a barrier and insulation, we're like, okay, we know you're getting
Yeah.
to that age. We know that you may be seeing it. Let's have that conversation versus just leaving the children up to their own devices and learning all the
Yeah.
wrong things about it, right?
There's this great quote by Patty Ray's Hobson who says, educate your children about boundaries before a predator tries to.
That's deep.
Right? Without
Really,
stopping in
really
your
good.
tracks. Like,
It would.
whoa. Like, honestly, like, think where do you want your children to get their information? Because this is one of the things Janae talks a lot about, like our blueprint for our sexuality is constructed from day one, how even as an infant, right, like how we engage with their body and talk to them and understand and how we're relating to their body and all those kinds of things, and then the experiences we have in sex education or no sex education, right, what we learn from friends, TV, movies, of course trauma, all of those things impact and shape this sexual blueprint that informs influences what we experience and what we think, and even how we take care of ourselves. And so, yeah, whose voice do you want to be the loudest in the room when it comes to what your children think and believe and know and understand about all those things? I was just talking with it's so funny how kismet things happen sometimes. I would just had a session with one of my clients and we were talking about sexual shame. And he was sharing a story about when he was masturbating as a, teenager and his mom came in and unexpectedly like found him, and the fallout from that and how dad the next day was speaking to him about that like only perverts do this. And I said to him, I think I want you to watch as your homework this Netflix series called Sex Education. And have you seen it, Train? Do you know it?
I haven't, but now you've piqued my curiosity.
Hey, so the basic premise is that I always forget her name. It's the lady from X-Files, Gillian Anderson
Gillian
or something.
Anderson.
Okay, so she's the mom and she's a sex psychologist, right? So she's just all in this world of sex positivity and helping people in their sex lives, and she has a teenage son. And they have very matter-of-fact conversations, right, about this whole world. And then he gets it in his head because he's going to school and seeing how his teenage friends are just fumbling around with all of this stuff, that he's going to kind of be a counselor. So that's kind of the basic premise that kicks off like all of these different, conversations and experiences. But I thought, wow, gosh, if I had, yeah, like if we grew up in those kinds of homes, right, and had that kind of access and understanding and empathy and encouragement and normalizing. So I said, watch this because you can get a kind of a sense of like how we would have hoped that your parents would have responded to you, exploring masturbation, as opposed to this shaming and, teaching you this very wrong lesson, that is something bad or wrong. So, anyway, I've gone off on a very, very random rabbit trail with this one, but rein me in.
I will, I will. So do me a favor. As we close, then I'm gonna give you three wishes. And what would you, yes, and you can't pick money and you can't pick forever, you can't pick more wishes or long life. With these three
Oh my
wishes,
gosh.
Rachel,
Oh,
what would you
stop.
want to change in the world with those three wishes and why?
Oh my goodness me. I would want everything to taste like French fries. That's my frivolous one.
Sweet potato or regular French fries?
regular French fries, just no matter. Everything tastes like great for really good, like really good, amazing French fries. I mean, it's obvious, but I of course would wish that no child ever experience, no person ever experience, child sexual abuse or trauma or harm in any way. And I would really, it's just very of the time, but I would really wish that Felon 47 would just poof, poof.
The
They say
Cheeto
it like
Man.
that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Are you gonna share yours? Are you gonna play too?
I can. Yeah. Okay. I can.
Okay.
I don't want anyone to go to bed hungry, so world
Yes.
hunger will be gone. Um, I want everyone to see the goodness in people before they see the color of someone's skin.
Hell yeah.
And the third wish would be everyone has a new sense of tolerance. No, let me change tolerance.
Beautiful.
Patience.
Beautiful. Mm, yeah, beautiful. Love
Now, if
that.
I'm going to be selfish, I want to be very, very rich, live forever, and what's my third one? I'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
I'll figure
Live
it out. My
forever.
third
That would never
selfish
be on
wish.
my list. Maybe that'll be a conversation for next time because I do not understand people who want to live forever. I'm like 63, I'm good. Let's check out. I'm done. So let's save that for another day.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's always a pleasure, Rachel.
Always. Sending you lots of love. Take good care.
All right.
Until next time. Bye.